Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for a very special online interview by NOW-fertility. I'm Antoine Abu Musa. I'm the Chief Medical Officer and Vice President of NOW-fertility. And I'm thrilled today to have with me our special guest, Ms. Claire Ines. She's the founder of the Fertility Mentor, and she has an extensive experience in supporting and mentoring patients through their fertility journey. Today, we'll be shedding light on a very important special topic, which is obesity and overweight. The importance of BMI during the journey of fertility treatment and its effect on reproductive health. Thank you, Claire, for being with us today. And I would like
Thank you for having me.
yeah. Can you please introduce yourself to our audience?
Yes. So I'm based here in Scotland, and my business, the Fertility Mentor, is all about helping women take the heartache and the doom scrolling out of fertility. So I aim to help women get their body, their eggs, their hormones, and their minds in the best possible place to conceive and carry a healthy baby. And that's, of course, whether they're trying naturally or through assisted reproductive technology, like through yourselves.
Okay. We all know that obesity has become a worldwide epidemic. And we're seeing a lot of patients, infertile patients, especially patients undergoing IVF, suffering from this major problem.
Yeah.
So my first question to you, how does high BMI impact the reproductive health in general? And what kind of risk does it impose on fertility?
Brilliant question. Thank you very much. So, the first kind of disclosure I would like to make is that as a health professional, I'm not a fan at all of using BMI alone as a measure of body fat. BMI basically calculates your weight in relation to your height. It doesn't take account of muscle mass, and it's not the most effective way to do it. However, I completely agree that managing body fat is crucial when it comes to improving fertility. And that's regardless of whether you're trying naturally or using IVF or IUI. So, as we're chatting, I might use BMI or body fat. I mean them kind of interlinked. And the other thing I'd like to say is I've worked with overweight women for a lot longer than I would like to say. And I used to be an overweight woman. So there's no hate here, there's no shade. This is about finding solutions. It's not about pointing fingers. So to answer your question, excess body fat can disrupt the hormonal balance in many ways when it comes to conceiving. And this is the case whether we're using art or whether we're doing it, it's fabulous if we have a menstrual cycle, if we ovulate naturally, excess body fat can affect that, but it's very relevant when using IVF as well. So some of the statistics, and I hate to be that cold-hearted so-and-so that kind of brings the statistics out, but some of them are so very powerful. This is the most recent one from the National Library of Medicine. Let me just find it. Overweight and obese pregnant women are at a strongly increased risk of baby loss, whether they've conceived naturally, after natural conception, or using reproductive measures. And that risk has been measured fairly recently. The risk of miscarriage and pregnancy loss before the first live-born child sits at 25 to 37% in higher BMI or obese women. And that in itself is quite a powerful statistic. But how this actually happens is we have a lower chance of actually conceiving as well. We've got leptin resistance. Basically, leptin is produced in fatty tissue. So the more fat that we have, the more chance we have of being dominant in leptin. That in itself can lead to higher estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, and particularly for women using IVF, higher leptin levels are associated with poorer ovarian reserve and poorer oocyte quality. And we know that that's just a word for the developing egg, don't we? Then we've got estrogen dominance, which is quite similar to what happens with leptin. But practically, the most common reason that I see is insulin resistance. So if we have excess body fat, particularly in women, if it's round about that kind of middle and it's very difficult to get rid of, that can often be a sign that our body is resistant to insulin. It's producing far too much of it because it's trying to keep glucose levels under control. And in the real world, this absolutely affects fertility and that delicate balance that we need for our hormones to be in this beautiful homeostasis to conceive. So this isn't a witch hunt. As you've gathered, I'm here in the UK, so we have the NHS, but I know that there's BMI measures all around the world, and it's not a witch hunt. It's not a case of saying you can't have this because of this. And I know, I mean, I've cried with women who feel as if, it's just another hurdle in an often heartbreaking journey. But IVF providers want success for you, don't they? They want you to have the success. They want you to have the more eggs, the healthy eggs, the successful pregnancies. So because they understand this and they're comfortable with all of this research, that is why such measures are put in place. It's actually for the woman's benefit. It's not supposed to be an extra hurdle. Would you agree with that, Antoine?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Of course, I think we tend to advise our patients before starting their IVF treatment to decrease their BMI. And many times they ask us, why do I need to decrease my BMI? And probably you have mentioned some of the things that obesity might lead during an IVF. For example, you mentioned that they might produce low quality eggs. But at the same time, they will need more stimulation. They will need more injections. It takes them a longer time to get pregnant. At the same time, the pregnancy rate itself with IVF also drops in patients who are obese or overweight. You
Yeah.
also mentioned that there is a very high, impressive risk of miscarriage in obese women, even if they get pregnant with IVF. And this is very, very important. And probably you can also tell us that there is also an increased risk of other complications during pregnancy, whether this is gestational diabetes or
Yes. Yeah,
hypertensive
that's the
disorders
big one,
during
isn't it?
pregnancy.
So with gestational diabetes, what often happens is the baby stops growing because there's GD in place, and this can be really, really worrying both for the health of the mother and the child, and it can often lead to early birth or C-sections that wouldn't particularly have been needed there in the first place.
Yeah.
And, early born babies being born prematurely and too small. There's lots of risks that sit alongside it that you wouldn't, and I get it again, is I say this with love for anyone watching this. All they want is to fall pregnant, but all we want is for them to get through that pregnancy healthily as well. So the battle or the upset doesn't stop as soon as they get that positive test, unfortunately. We want them to stay pregnant and have a beautiful, healthy baby at the end of it, don't we?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, I think now the evidence, as you mentioned, is very strong related to the negative outcome in IVF and the complications that the patient might have during pregnancy. So, what are the strategies that you use to advise patients to lose weight before starting their fertility journey? What's your advice to these patients?
I have loads and loads and loads of advice, and everything I'm about to talk about is useful both for weight loss but also for egg quality. So, the main things that I say to my clients is if you're looking to lose weight, aim to do it sustainably and sensibly. Okay? Run like the wind from high street diets like Slimming World that are simply going to tell you to eliminate dietary fats. I can't stress enough that eliminating dietary fats is very, very bad news for your egg quality, for balancing your hormones. And I know that if you're watching this, you've probably been through enough stress. You don't have time to waste. You need dietary fats. Okay. So please do not go near any, call them diets, any diet that's telling you to eliminate whole food groups. What we really want to be doing is eat to optimize our hormones and practice a calorie deficit at the same time. So these are two things that can definitely be done together. So I ask my clients, all of my clients get full education on the macronutrients that are at play here. So we've got carbohydrates, which is the one that's often demonized, isn't it? And a lot of people think, I'm going to eliminate carbs and everything will be fine. We need carbs. Carbs are our body's main source of energy. But for fertility, we want the right carbs. We want minimally processed carbs. If we think about, and I can't have a conversation, Antoine, without drawing a chart, but if we think about what happens, say, if we were to eat 100 calories of bread, and we think about our blood glucose, and therefore the corresponding amount of insulin our body needs to make to bring that back down, versus if we have something that's slower release, like a nice piece of quinoa, that's going to drive our blood sugars up much slower and then bring them down much slower. So if we think about trying to keep these levels nice, just nice and even throughout the day, the way we do that is by getting our body to process the carbs. If we go for white bread, it's been pre-pulverized, it's been over-processed. I want your body doing the hard work. I want you eating whole grains. They're going to keep you fuller for longer. They're going to minimize that spike, and they're actually going to increase the calorie burn that your body needs to go through to process them. The next big macronutrient that I've already touched on is dietary fats. All of my clients are encouraged to eat dietary fats with every single meal. Now, I'm a child of the 80s. I'm sure there's other children of the 70s and 90s watching this. Fats are not the demon that the 80s would have told us, okay? There is some really, really poor quality ones out there, but I'm talking about the lovely, natural, plant-based fats, olive oil, avocado, all of those beautiful omegas, nuts and seeds. Our body needs dietary fat. Again, that helps minimize this insulin spike, but it's so good for the quality of our eggs, for optimizing those hormones. And then the last, which if you follow me, you'll know I prattle on about all the time, is protein. Protein is the least sexy nutrient, isn't it? It's everyone's least favorite, but it is responsible for the growth and creation of every cell in our body. So we need to consume protein, A, to keep us feeling full, to keep us, energized to go to these IVF appointments or to have intercourse with our partner, but also to nourish our bodies, to have a lovely uterine lining, to have nice, healthy eggs. These are all things that we do anyway. Every single person wakes up and eats to sustain their life. So if we do it properly, in a deficit, but don't try and eliminate anything or do crazy stuff. We want to be sustainable and we want our body happy, rested, nourished. So I get really passionate talking about this, Antoine. Are you following me so far?
Yeah, sure, good.
Yeah, okay. So once we understand macronutrients and we understand calories, which I can bore you with another day, the next thing that a lot of people underestimate is hydration and caffeine. Okay. Most of the women I work with are career girls. They are busy, they are stressed, and they are surviving on caffeine until lunchtime. A lot of them are skipping breakfast. It's just not good for their nervous system. I understand why they're doing it, especially if they're trying to lose weight. But caffeine is a diuretic. It's not it might inhibit your appetite temporarily, but that won't stop you being in an energy deficit. Caffeine will keep you up at night. It will make you a nervous wreck. If you're watching this, you're probably already a nervous wreck. So please, no more than one caffeinated drink a day. And otherwise, just drink water. Know you're drinking enough water. We need this for our bodies to function. We want that lovely thick uterine lining, but also for weight loss. If you're not hydrated, your body isn't working properly. It's going to be fighting other things, trying to hold on to things it doesn't need. Next one is a biggie, which is exercise. Now, this is a passion of mine, but it doesn't need to be a passion of everyone's. I meet my clients exactly where they are. If I have a client who's working 60 hours a week, she doesn't have a gym membership, she's got no interest in the gym, or perhaps I have a client who has a BMI of 40 and she's terrified to go into a gym because she thinks everyone's judging her. And that is a very real fear, by the way. Just go off your arse and go for a walk. Okay, we can't underestimate the power of just moving our NEAT. It's called, or it stands for NEAT, and it stands for non-exercise activity thermogenesis. There's been many studies that tell us just moving around in the day is 4 times as effective as anything we do in the gym when it comes to weight loss. Don't get me wrong, it's not going to get you strong, it's not going to get you muscles or abs, but for weight loss, which is what we're talking about, getting off our bum. If you tell me now, Antoine, have you ever met an overweight cabin steward or someone who has a physical job? Because it's just their day, isn't it? It's just their day. They're burning more calories. So, getting out for walks, taking the stairs. I know you've heard this a million times, but it's never truer in a fertility context. And moving around is so useful for inflammation as well. I'm sure you meet women every day
Yeah.
dealing with endo, dealing with PCOS, just moving around. And that doesn't need to be an expensive gym membership. It doesn't need to be like a dance class. It can be going for a walk, but
Yeah.
sustainably every day. And you
Yeah.
will see much more difference being consistent with that than spending all the money and the time in the gym.
Simple movement will do
Next
the job
thing, so
sometimes. Yeah. I'm saying simple
pardon?
movement, simple movements sometimes do the job.
Yeah,
And women, they don't
absolutely.
have to decrease a lot of weight. Sometimes you tell them they just need to decrease 5 to 7% of their weight, and this might be good enough for their eggs and for the
Yeah.
response. Oh, this is very
I've seen
interesting.
that
I think,
study. I think it's something like 5 to 10% can see something like a 15 to 20% increase in outputs.
yeah,
Yeah. It
yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
need to be, you don't need to be Rocky or a ballerina, just
yeah, of
moving
course. Yeah,
around.
yeah.
And then, of
Well,
course, that's going to get those endorphins going. That's going to make us feel good and then make us want to cook a healthy meal when we go home instead of ordering takeaway. And because we feel good, we're going to be less likely to pour a glass of wine and just have a nice herbal tea. All of these things just absolutely, it's a house of cards and they keep each other going.
yeah, I think your approach is really very fascinating and interesting. And you talked about a very important thing that we rarely discuss or mention to our patient, which is the high street diets, as you call it, or the quick fixes, and the
Yeah.
danger of this type of diet on our patient. And it was great that you have mentioned it for us. So
Yeah.
my next question is, we know that losing weight is very difficult. It's not easy. So what do you advise patients who struggle reducing BMI despite all the things, all the advices that you have mentioned? And this will bring me to my second questions. What do you think about the medications that are very popular nowadays, injections, tablets, that they use to decrease the weight?
So your first question was, let me just answer in order.
Patients who are, despite all the changes, all the advices that you give them, sometimes they struggle to decrease weight. It's
Yeah.
not easy. So, what's
So
your advice?
people struggle to lose weight all the time. It's hard. So we need to give ourselves a bit of grace. So I'm about to turn 40 this year. And when I was at my heaviest, my eating habits didn't form overnight. They formed over many years around my lifestyle. So we need to understand that it's not going to be possible to just wake up one morning and jump out of bed and want to go for a run and want to eat, like all the fancy foods. We need to understand that we didn't get where we are overnight. So we can't get to where we want to be overnight either. We are human. We are often chronically stressed. Pick one thing at a time. One thing. There's an absolutely amazing book called James Clear called Atomic Habits. And he talks about mastering one habit at a time. And then once that's embedded, we go on to the next and then the next. So that's what all of my programs are about. Literally, when I first talk to a client, they bring their blood tests, they bring everything. And I say, no, no, no. How much water have you had to drink today? How many steps have you done? Let's nail the basics first. So, for anyone who's struggling, especially if you have been Googling weight loss injections or Googling keto, please, please, please look at the basics first and track them. If it's not being tracked, is it happening? I know I keep using water as an example, but it's something that's universal, isn't it? Every single person should be drinking lots of water. If I say to a client or just a prospect, how much water did you drink yesterday? The answer 99% of the time will be probably not enough, but I'm trying to drink more. But they can't put a number around it. We want numbers. We need a system. So that might be 500 ml bottles. It might be two of these. Like, I must refill this twice a day. And if I haven't done that, I haven't achieved it. Because that's the difference, though, isn't it? Like, I've finished this, tick, I'm proud of myself. I've done something good for myself today. I know I can do it tomorrow. So, one thing at a time, track it, and please, 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 please be careful of all the, I don't know if I'm allowed to say bullshit here, but I know this is being edited. Please be careful of all the bullshit that's out there, because often it does more harm than good.
Wow, this is very, very interesting. And breaking the habit and having one habit at a time, try to fix it or try to make sure that you're having one habit at a time, build up. And the book that we talked about is really interesting. I have read it also. And so you think that these medications that they are taking and the injections, they bring more harm than good to the patients?
Well, some of the medications, so obviously you'll be familiar with things like metformin, and they are very well studied and they have been shown to be safe. And to be clear, I am absolutely a fan of them. A, because they're prescription only, and as far as I'm aware, that's the case around the world. I don't think there's anywhere that you can just go buy those sort of medications. So I feel that they're much safer because they can only be prescribed by a medical professional. The injections you're referring to, things like Ozempic, I don't think they've been tested long enough at all. I know that they were, they've been, people in the medical community have been aware of it for much longer than like lay people that we have, but I don't think they've been tested enough at all on fertility patients. And I think that we're probably about 5 years away from me being able to have an opinion on that. And you can understand why I would be skeptical, because my obsession is egg quality and hormone balance. And it's amazing when we can see that scale going down, or we can maybe see insulin levels coming down, but we do not know what that's doing to the rest of our bodies. And I'm just a little bit worried about them. I would never say never, but I would urge anyone watching this, do not purchase this sort of thing. Consult with a medical doctor who knows that you are trying to conceive.
Yeah, I think this is very important. Actually, we tell our patients if they are taking such injections or medications, they need to stop it at least 2 months before they embark into pregnancy or IVF treatment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this has been an amazing, amazing interview with a lot of information. It was really glad having you with us today. Would you like to add
Such a
anything?
pleasure.
Yeah.
Lots of smiles and lots of laughs.
Yeah. Yeah. Would you like to end with any message, anything you'd like to tell us?
I've got so many things I want. I'm going to have to come back. Please invite me back so that we can talk some more. But please just treat yourself and your body with kindness and grace. And overall, practice progress, not perfection when it comes to weight loss. Progress, better than yesterday, better than last year. Doesn't need to be perfect. You'll drive yourself mad trying to be perfect. And follow me.
Yes, for sure. We'll be looking forward for a new interview, new topic to discuss together. It was great having you today with us.
Absolute pleasure, Antoine. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Bye.